The wind rolled off the Rockies like a warning that morning. Ethan Cole had been gone only 4 days, long enough to bury his mother, not long enough for strangers to start repainting the edges of his life. The gravel drive to his ranch crunched under his truck tires. A brand-new white sign leaned in the early light. Maple Ridge Covenant Authority, private property. Violators will be fined. His stomach turned. That name hadn't existed a week ago. He parked beside the barn and killed the engine. From the ridge he could see 2 men in reflective vests, walking the perimeter fence with clipboards, measuring tape flashing like mirrors in the sun. Beyond them a black SUV idled, its door emblazoned with the HOA's insignia. "Morning, gentlemen," Ethan called. "You're on restricted ground," one replied without looking up. "Restricted?" Ethan's boots hit the dirt. "This is my ground." The taller man finally faced him. "According to our records, you're in violation of Covenant Ordinance 42, unapproved structures inside the setback line. This parcel's under review for remedial sale." Sale. The word hit like a hammer. Inside the SUV, the driver's window slid down. A woman's face appeared. Perfect hair, sunglasses, the calm of someone who never sweated for what she owned. Marilyn Drake, newly elected HOA president. "Mr. Cole," she said sweetly. "You're back early. I was told you'd be gone through the weekend. What the hell are you doing on my land?" "Correcting an oversight," she replied. "Your grandfather's property was absorbed into the Maple Ridge subdivision charter 2 years ago. Paperwork must have missed your mailbox." Ethan felt the ground tilt. His grandfather's deed dated 1964, older than any charter in the county. He pulled his phone, scrolling to a photo of the deed he'd backed up years ago. "Absorbed? Lady, this land was never for sale." "Please lower your voice," Marilyn said. "There are residents watching." He looked toward the houses that now dotted the horizon where open pasture once stood. Curtains twitched. Phones pointed. Marilyn's SUV door opened. Her heels hit the dirt like punctuation marks. She held a leather folder to her chest, the kind bureaucrats used when they were certain they were right. "Marilyn, your grandfather never recorded an easement for the driveway. When the subdivision plat was finalized, that strip reverted to common access. Ethan, that's a lie. There's a recorded survey at the county clerk's office. Marilyn, then you won't mind if our enforcement team verifies that." She turned toward the 2 men with clipboards. "Finish the perimeter." Ethan's fists flexed. He wanted to grab the sign and smash it in half, but he forced himself to breathe. Anger without proof wouldn't help. Proof would. That afternoon he drove to Mesa County Records, a low concrete building that always smelled of dust and toner. Behind the counter sat Darla, a clerk who'd known him since his fire inspection days. "Ethan, need a copy of every plat or amendment filed on the Maple Ridge subdivision." Darla, "That's a stack." "Ethan, you planning to build a house or fight one?" "Ethan, fight." She printed a dozen sheets. The newest map caught his eye, a bold red boundary line that sliced directly through his pasture. At the bottom, a signature he didn't recognize. E. Cole. Ethan. They forged my name. Darla. Looks that way. "You should talk to the surveyor listed, S. Green. Mountain Edge Engineering." Ethan photographed every page and drove straight to the address on the header. Mountain Edge Engineering. 4:30 p.m. A bearded man in a safety vest looked up from a drafting table. "Ethan, you're Samuel Green." "Green. Yeah, can I help you?" Ethan slid the document across the table. Green's eyebrows rose. "Green, that's not my stamp." Someone scanned it from an old project. He stepped to a filing cabinet, rummaged, and pulled the real record. "Green. See? My seal's blue ink embossed. Whoever did this used a grayscale copy. And that signature, never seen it." Ethan exhaled. "Forged survey confirmed." "Green, you want my statement? I'll write it. People have been using my credentials for subdivision scams before." Ethan nodded. Please, and keep this quiet. Back at the ranch, twilight turned the hills purple. The white sign still glared from the fence line. He walked toward it, the paper in his pocket proof enough for now. A car engine idled nearby. Headlights flashed once, twice. Then silence. He felt the hair rise on his arms. Whoever was watching didn't want to be seen. At 2 a.m., Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number text. Leave it alone. Cole. The covenant protects its own. He stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Next morning, coffee steamed in his mug as he called his old partner from the fire department. Detective Laura Perez, now with the county sheriff's office. Ethan. Laura. You ever heard of an HOA trying to seize land outside its boundary? Laura, not legally. Why? He told her everything. The forged plat. The mysterious text. Laura. Send me the documents quietly. I'll see what code enforcement has on Maple Ridge. An hour later she called back. Laura, you're not going to like this. 3 complaints were filed in your name last week, against yourself. Noise, waste runoff, fire hazard. Signed E. Cole. Ethan nearly dropped his cup. They were building a record to justify seizure. Laura, whoever filed these is using your credentials to stack violations. Sit tight. Don't confront them alone. But Ethan couldn't sit tight. By noon he was at the Maple Ridge HOA office, a prefab building behind the community pool. Through the glass he saw Marilyn Drake and 2 board members, all in business casual smiles. He pushed through the door. Ethan, you forged county documents. You forged my signature. Marilyn, Mr. Cole, please, lower your voice. Board member number 1. If you're referring to recorded plats, all filings were handled by our legal counsel. Ethan, then you won't mind showing me that counsel's name. Marilyn folded her arms. Marilyn, you're trespassing on HOA property. Leave before I call security. He leaned across the counter, eyes locked on hers. Ethan, call whoever you want. I'm not the one who should be scared. He left before rage betrayed him. Outside, a neighbor approached. A young mother with a stroller. She whispered, they fined me for hanging laundry. Then doubled it when I asked for proof. Another man, older, murmured, they said my shed was 2 inches over the line. Cost me $5,000. Fear lived behind every polite smile in Maple Ridge. Ethan realized the truth. Marilyn's HOA wasn't just abusing him. It was bleeding the whole community. He drove away with the decision made. This time he'd gather every scrap of evidence, every frightened homeowner's story, and expose them all. Rain came hard that evening, turning the gravel lane to mud. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, maps and photos spread in front of him, phone recorder blinking red. He wasn't a cop anymore, but he still thought like one. A lie always left fingerprints. He started with the numbers. Every fine notice the HOA issued had a payment routing to the same shell company, MR Property Management, LLC. A quick state business search showed it registered only 8 months ago by Talon Development Group, the same developer lobbying to expand Maple Ridge. Marilyn Drake's husband, he discovered, sat on its board. He smiled without humor. There's the motive. At dawn, he loaded his truck and began visiting homeowners. Door after door opened to nervous faces, each with their own quiet grievance. They threatened to foreclose if we didn't repaint the fence. Charged me for a violation that never happened. Said my mailbox color lowered property value. Ethan recorded every statement. By sunset, he had 15 interviews. A pattern was forming. Manufactured fines, inflated fees, threats of liens, all feeding that same company account. He sent the files to Detective Perez Laura on phone. That's enough for a fraud inquiry. But keep your head down, Ethan. People tied to Talon have deep pockets. Ethan, I'm not backing off. Laura, then at least let me loop in the DA before you go public. He promised nothing. That night, motion lights flared behind the barn. Ethan stepped out with his flashlight. Tire tracks carved the wet ground, fresh, wide like SUV treads. In the beam's edge, something glinted. A small metallic tag stamped, "Property of Maple Ridge Covenant Enforcement." He pocketed it. Inside, His phone buzzed again. Text. Stop filming your neighbors. Cole, we warned you. He looked out into the rain and whispered, keep watching. I want you to. 2 days later, county records. Annex Laura met him in the parking lot, coat collar up against the wind. She slid a folder across the hood of her car. Laura, forensics confirmed the survey stamp you gave me is fake. We traced the document upload to a workstation inside the HOA office. Ethan, you can get a warrant? Laura, working on it. But the DA wants airtight evidence. Ethan opened his laptop. Airtight was his specialty. He mapped every HOA transaction, cross-referencing board meeting minutes against county filing dates. The same signature pattern appeared each time, digital scans of Marilyn's initials. But one entry 3 months ago had a timestamp logged at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. Automation. Someone was auto-signing documents to backdate illegal filings. He exported the logs to a drive labeled Covenant Trap Evening. Local cafe. Ethan met Riley Dunn, a freelance journalist he trusted from old fire department days. Riley, you're saying an HOA forged surveys and laundered fines through a shell company? Ethan, and used county servers to legitimize it. Riley whistled. Riley, if you're wrong, they'll sue you into the ground. If you're right, it's the story of the year. Ethan, then make sure it's right. They shook hands over cooling coffee. Next morning, HOA boardroom, Marilyn Drake convened an emergency meeting. Her smile was tighter now. Marilyn, Mr. Cole is spreading slander. Effective immediately, his property is subject to foreclosure proceedings. Board member, can we do that? The injunction, Marilyn, we can do whatever the charter allows. But even as she spoke, one board member, Alan Reeves, the treasurer, kept glancing at his phone. Ethan's interviews were already online under the title, The Covenant Trap, How an HOA Steals a Town. Views climbing by the minute. The backlash was instant. Neighbors filled comment sections with their own complaints. Local news picked it up. County auditors followed. Marilyn's perfect suburb was cracking. That night, Ethan returned home to find his mailbox torn out, post splintered. He installed cameras, front gate, barn, every angle. If they wanted intimidation, he'd give them documentation. 2 days later, Perez called again. Laura, warrants approved. We hit the HOA office tomorrow morning. Ethan's breath steadied. Months of tension funneled into that single word. Tomorrow. Dawn, Operation Sheriff's units rolled quietly into Maple Ridge. Perez led the entry while Ethan watched from across the street. Camera rolling for evidence. Inside, investigators found forged deeds, fake inspection logs, a hard drive labeled archive. Every false fine, every unauthorized fee, archived and time-stamped. Marilyn Drake stood frozen behind her desk as deputies cuffed her. Marilyn, you don't understand. The community wanted order. Laura, you wanted profit. They escorted her past Ethan. She stopped just long enough to hiss, Marilyn, this isn't over. Ethan, it is for you, but the takedown was only the surface. As investigators dug deeper, Talon Development's name surfaced again, payments routing offshore, contracts linking county officials, and the promise of a new golf course community sitting on seized land. Perez looked at Ethan. Laura, you just kicked open a much. The headlines hit before noon. HOA president arrested in land grab investigation. By evening, satellite vans ringed Maple Ridge, their dishes glinting under storm clouds. Reporters hunted sound bites, but Ethan Cole stayed silent. The story needed evidence, not noise. Inside the sheriff's office, Detective Perez spread a fresh batch of documents across the conference table. Wire transfer logs, emails, a memorandum labeled Talon Phase 2 Expansion. At the bottom, 3 signatures. Marilyn Drake, Talon CEO Wes Burke, and County Planner Miller Dane Laura. They planned to condemn 12 parcels under public safety redevelopment. Yours was first. Ethan, and the fines were their leverage. Laura, exactly. They inflate debt, seize on default, then redevelop. Ethan studied the ink, each pen stroke a small betrayal. He'd seen arson scenes with fewer burn marks. Midnight, Ethan's ranch. The power flickered twice, then died. He grabbed his flashlight, sweeping the porch. Beyond the gate, two silhouettes moved toward the barn. The beam caught a license plate for half a second before it vanished into the dark. Inside the barn, he found a gas can overturned, the floor damp but unlit. A warning, he called Perez. Within minutes, a cruiser idled at the drive. Laura, they're rattled. Means we're close. She set an evidence tag on the can. Stay somewhere else tonight. Ethan shook his head. Ethan, if they want a fire, I'll be here to put it out. Next morning, County Courthouse, a temporary injunction hearing packed the small courtroom. Talon's lawyers filled one table, their suits sharp enough to cut paper. Perez sat behind Ethan, silent support. Judge Ellis entered, silver hair gleaming under fluorescence. Judge Ellis. We're here regarding property seizure under the Maple Ridge Covenant Authority. Ethan rose, holding the forged survey aloft. Ethan, Your Honor, this document authorized every act of theft they committed. The signature is fake, the stamp stolen, the authority non-existent. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Perez stepped forward with the forensic report. Green's affidavit confirmed the forgery. The judge's gavel cracked once. Judge Ellis. Effective immediately. All enforcement actions by Maple Ridge HOA are suspended pending criminal review. Ethan exhaled for the first time in days. 2 weeks later, the fall Riley Dunn's expose went live. The Covenant Trap, how an HOA became a corporate front. In 24 hours, it hit 1 million views. Homeowners from across the state flooded comment sections with their own stories of abuse. State investigators opened 3 more cases. Talon Development's stock collapsed overnight. Perez's desk phone never stopped ringing. Laura, we got cooperation offers from 2 board members. They're ready to testify. Ethan Marilyn? Laura, cut a deal. State charges in exchange for federal testimony. She'll serve time. He nodded, not satisfied, but resolved. Final hearing. 6 months later in federal court. Agent Rodriguez from the DOJ summarized the case. Forged surveys, wire fraud transfers, coercion under color of covenant law. Sentences rolled out like hammer strikes. Burke, 10 years. Dane, 7. Marilyn Drake, 5 plus restitution. When it was over, the judge turned to Ethan. Judge, Mr. Cole, without your persistence, none of this would have surfaced. The court thanks you. He simply nodded. Epilogue. 1 year later, Maple Ridge changed its sign. Community by choice, not control. The new board drafted fair bylaws. Perez consulted on transparency rules. Talon's seized assets funded homeowner relief. At the ranch, the fence stood where it always had, cedar posts sun-bleached but steady. Ethan leaned against the gate, coffee steaming in the cold morning. Beyond the pasture, kids rode bikes down streets once lined with violation notices. Riley's documentary had just won a regional award. She texted a photo of the trophy. For the man who proved truth still matters. He smiled, tucked the phone away, and watched sunlight pour over the hills. Narration, closing. Power hides in paperwork. But sometimes the right signature is courage. Ethan Cole didn't set out to be a hero. He just refused to surrender what was already his. And in doing so, he freed everyone who thought they couldn't fight back. Fade out. Wind in the grass. Justice quiet and complete.